Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Monday morning. I'm gonna upload another short lecture video covering part of Chapter 18. I'm gonna do three of these for Chapter 18. To break the chapter up into a few smaller parts here. This one should be a fairly quick video, just like the other ones I posted. I'm gonna have a short quiz to have you take. I'm going to post these notes along with it. In case you haven't already, please make sure you take the Chapter 17 test. I posted that on Friday. Most of you have taken it, but there's still some of you that still need to get caught up and get that test taken. Um, so anyway, Chapter 18 is going to get into the topic of personal finance, sort of this a fairly important chapter as far as taking care of your own money. So I'm just going to go through a handful of slides here. My notes have frozen. There we go. This first lesson of first section gets into the idea of consumerism. Consumerism is a really simple topic. It's the idea of educating or teaching people and buyers about their purchases, trying to get us to make wise decisions, to buy things um, because it's the wise thing to do, not necessarily because it's the thing that we want. I guess I'm at a loss of words here. Just to make sure that when we buy something, it's not a stupid decision, and to try to protect ourselves as much as possible. For your own knowledge, there are three government agencies that are responsible for protecting the consumer and making sure that businesses don't do bad things. There's the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, the Federal Trade Commission, and the Better Business Bureau. To put these three government agencies into um, to explain them in just a moment, their basic job is to punish bad businesses. When businesses do things wrong or they hurt us, they can be fined, they can be punished. They, in extreme cases, can be shut down. The government can just shut their doors. Um, to go a step further, in 1962, President Kennedy, JFK, had pushed Congress to put forth what's known as a Consumer Bill of Rights. This is not anything in the Constitution. This is just a piece of legislation, but it is still a list of rights that are guaranteed by the federal government for consumers, just people going into stores and buying stuff. And most of them are pretty simple to explain. You have your right to safety. Like when you buy something, you are guaranteed that it is not going to kill you or hurt you or ruin your life. You have the right to be informed. Basic facts need to be given to you. I'm making dinner right now. So, for instance, um, basic facts, I'm making Uncle Ben's rice. If I look at the side of this box, which you probably can't see whatsoever, I can see the ingredients in here. So if there's something in this box that kill me, really bad allergic reactions, I have the right to know what is in what it is I'm buying. I have the right to choose. Competition is important. I have the right to be heard. I can tell businesses what I think. That doesn't mean that they have to change their behaviors. If I buy a pizza from Fox's and it sucks, I can tell them, but that doesn't mean anything's going to change. But I do have the right to like let them know. I have the right to redress, and this is kind of an oftentimes misconceived portion of the Consumer Bill of Rights. What the right to redress means is that you have the right when you are misled or harmed by a product, you have the right to be compensated. Typically, you have the right to a refund. So, I mean, if you buy something and it is not what you were promised, you can be compensated or be given a refund for what it was you bought. We are guaranteed the right to environmental health, the right to service. So, like if you are a black person, you can't be denied the right to service because the owner of a business hates black people. Or if you're gay, you can't be denied service because the owner of a business doesn't like gay people. And you have the right to basic consumer education, meaning if you buy something and it requires being trained to use the product you bought, you have to be given appropriate training to use the product or directions. But consumers do have responsibilities when they buy things. They do have a responsibility to be informed. If you have allergic reactions and you know that a certain type of food could kill you, it is your responsibility to make sure that you are not buying food that could kill you. You do have a responsibility to comparison shop, explore generic goods, because they can sometimes be cheaper and just as good a product as the name brand goods. You are expected to handle your problems appropriately, use goods and services as they're meant to be used. If you have a product that has a warranty, you're supposed to use the product the way it's meant to be used. So, like if you have a car that has a warranty and the warranty requires that you get the oil changed every 3,000 miles, change the oil every 3,000 miles. Don't change it every 10,000 miles and then wonder why you blew the engine out. You should keep receipts, you should keep manuals, take care of the products, maintain the quality of the things that you buy. And quite honestly, if you expect businesses to be honest, we should expect consumers to be honest as well. They should not just buy something, use and abuse it, and then lie to the business and say that it was broken when they bought it. So the customer is not, quite frankly, always right. You should avoid impulse buying. I try to avoid going into Sheets at all costs because every time I go into Sheets, I see all like the awesome foods that I want to stick in my mouth. So whenever I get gas, I try to buy gas at the pump to avoid the impulse buying. Never a popular topic, especially talking to teenagers, but prioritize wants versus needs. It is the responsible thing to do to not necessarily always buy a want and save your money for your needs. And then think about your opportunity costs, which we talked about that in chapter 16. Think about the negative consequences of your actions. If you spend $10,000 on a new car, that will have negative consequences. And if you're going to buy that car, just accept those negative consequences. Lesson two is going to get into the idea of budgeting money. I don't think you're going to need me to explain a whole lot about like what a budget is. Really, it's just sort of a plan or an estimate for how you're going to make money and spend money for a period of time. We're going to spend some time on budgeting. I have a couple of activities that I'm hoping that we can get into and explore with the idea of budgeting. And just a little bit about credit. Credit itself is just the idea of borrowing cash to make purchases. There's no real limit as to how or when you can or should use credit. There are a lot of great examples. Common examples would be borrowing money from someone or from a bank to buy a car. Many of you guys are going to be looking at colleges or schools after high school, and you may need student loans. Many of you are going to buy homes in the future. Some of you already have credit cards. Those are all examples of credit. Typically, when you do borrow money and you use credit, fees are charged to you for the right to borrow that money. That is called interest. Places of business are not willing to just loan you money and then just say, well, we'll take your payment back because we're just swell people and we like you so much. They want to make money. So if I'm going to loan money to any of you to buy a pizza at Fox's tonight, quite frankly, I expect that money back plus a little bit extra because you used my money to buy that pizza. So if I loan you $20 for a pizza, I might say I want $25 back. So that's how credit works. Three most common sources of credit. You can get credit from banks. You can get it directly from companies. So like I know Walmart and Target, for instance, push their own credit cards quite a bit. So like you can get a credit card through Walmart or through Target, or you can go through the government and get credit. There's some great benefits to using credit. Quite frankly, you can get stuff that you couldn't normally afford. Like for instance, a car. Cars are expensive. Most of you don't have $10,000 or $15,000 laying around to just buy a brand new car. But if you have good enough credit, you can go to a bank and get a loan and then spread that money out over a period of time, and then you can get a car rather than saving money for the next 3 years. So that's probably the biggest benefit. Like for instance, I'm sitting in my house right now. I had to borrow a lot of money to buy this house. It would have taken me decades to save enough money to buy a house, and quite frankly, that's unrealistic. So this is a great way to make large purchases when we don't have the money for them. But this is dangerous, and I will talk about this in a future video, the dangers of a credit trap. Quite frankly, you could bury yourself in debt if you are irresponsible with your credit. If you are using your credit card too much and you're not paying it off quick enough, you can get yourself into this perpetual cycle where you are never, quite frankly, getting out of debt. And all of you guys are going to have a credit score, and I wish I could spend more time on this, but given our circumstances, I can't. You guys, if you pay attention to TV commercials, you'll probably see a lot of different credit score commercials out there. Credit scores are real. As far as how somebody gets credit, um, banks and lenders oftentimes look at your credit scores. This is just a number that gets attached to you that determines your reliability in paying back credit. So, like if I give Breyer $20 to buy a pizza, am I ever going to see that $20 again? I don't necessarily know how reliable Breyer is. Will he pay me back? If he does, great. If he doesn't, I'm going to be upset. So banks and lenders look at this credit score. And there are a lot of factors that go into this credit score. Things like your age, your job, the type of job you have, the salary you have, your past credit usage. Have you used too much credit? Have you used too little credit? If you're an 18-year-old kid that's never had credit before, you might think that's a good thing. But as a credit card company, you might be nervous about loaning that money out to an 18-year-old that's never had credit because you don't know if they're ever going to pay it back. Um, how timely are you in paying back past bills? Are you slow? Are you late in paying stuff back? A lot of times, what you're buying might determine whether or not you get a better credit score. If you're buying a house, that implies that you're probably going to be in the community for a long time. If you're trying to buy a sports car to go racing off in Europe somewhere, why is a bank in Port Allegheny going to loan you money to go drive a sports car in Europe? And the amount of money that you're borrowing. If Gage Smoker walks into a bank and says, I would like to borrow $1,000,000, they're going to laugh him out the door. But if he comes in and says you'd like to borrow $10,000, they're going to listen to him and they're going to figure out whether or not this is something that is worthwhile for them and for him. So, and again, I wish I could spend more time on this. This is one of those real world lessons and activities that maybe you should sit down and talk with your parents about what goes into a credit score. This is a hugely important topic, and we are going to get into the issue of credit and interest in a future video, probably later this week, I think. All right. Like I said, make sure that you take a few minutes, take the short quiz. I think it's 15 points for this video. So have yourselves a good rest of your Monday. See ya. Bye.